What if I told you that you're probably doing far better in life than you think? Most of us wake up with this nagging sense that we're behind, that everyone else is moving faster, achieving more, and living bigger. But the truth is, you're likely making progress in ways you don't even see yet. Sometimes, the greatest signs of growth aren't loud or flashy. They're quiet shifts that sneak up on you until one day you realize you're no longer the same person you used to be. Today, we're going to uncover 7 powerful signs that prove you're further along than you realize. And by the end of this video, you'll see yourself in a whole new light. Think back to the person you were just a year or 2 ago. The way you thought, the way you reacted, the things that used to overwhelm you. Chances are, you've changed more than you realize. Outgrowing old versions of yourself is one of the clearest signs that you're on the right path. Growth doesn't always look like a big promotion, a brand new house, or some dramatic milestone. Sometimes it looks like being calmer in situations that once triggered you. It looks like handling disappointment with grace instead of anger. It looks like choosing a healthier habit today because the old ways no longer serve you. The tricky part is that this kind of growth doesn't always feel like growth. It feels normal because you've lived through the changes gradually. You might not even notice it until you stop and reflect on who you used to be. Maybe you used to avoid tough conversations, but now you find yourself speaking up when something matters. Maybe you once ran from challenges, but now you face them with quiet determination. These are not small things. They are evidence of transformation. Think of yourself as chapters in a book. Each version of you had a purpose, but not every version is meant to stay forever. When you look back and realize you've turned the page and grown into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded, that's proof that you're doing better than you think. Outgrowing old versions of yourself means you're not stuck. You're evolving, and every step you take forward, no matter how invisible it feels day to day, is pushing you further than you realize. One of the most underrated signs that you're further along in life than you realize is your ability to say no. It sounds simple, but for many people, it's one of the hardest skills to learn. For years, you might have said yes to things you didn't want to do, commitments that drained you, or people who took advantage of your kindness. You thought that pleasing everyone was the path to being liked, respected, or accepted. But over time, you began to understand that constantly saying yes was costing you your energy, your peace, and sometimes even your identity. When you learn to say no, you're not just rejecting an invitation or turning down an opportunity. You're actively choosing yourself. You're protecting your time and your mental well-being. This shift shows maturity because it means you recognize that your worth isn't defined by how much you do for others, but by who you are and how you choose to live. Think about the times you've turned down something recently, even if it was uncomfortable. Maybe you said no to a social event because you needed rest. Maybe you declined an extra project at work because you didn't want to burn out. Or maybe you walked away from a toxic relationship because you knew deep down it wasn't right for you. In those moments, you might have felt guilty or worried about disappointing someone, but choosing no was actually a massive step forward. The power of no is a sign of growth because it shows you're no longer living for external validation. You're prioritizing what truly matters to you. Every time you set a boundary, you're reinforcing that your time, your energy, and your peace are valuable. And that's a strong indicator that you're not only doing better than you think, you're building a stronger foundation for the future. Resilience is one of those qualities that often reveals itself quietly in the background of your life. You might not notice it in the moment, but when you look back, you realize how much stronger you've become. Think about a setback you've faced recently, a rejection, a failure, maybe even a heartbreak. A few years ago, something like that might have completely shattered you. You might have stayed down for weeks, replaying what went wrong, questioning yourself, or giving up altogether. But now, you bounce back faster. The sting is still there, but it doesn't keep you stuck the way it once did. That ability to recover more quickly is resilience, and it's a powerful sign that you're further along than you think. Resilience doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you brush everything off with a smile. What it does mean is that you've built up the inner strength to keep going despite the pain. You've learned that one failure doesn't define you. One rejection doesn't end your story, and one mistake doesn't erase your worth. Every time life knocked you down and you stood back up, you were training yourself to be tougher, wiser, and more adaptable. The truth is, most people underestimate their own resilience because it doesn't always feel like victory. It feels like dragging yourself out of bed when you'd rather give up. It feels like showing up for work even when yesterday crushed you. It feels like facing your problems when running away would be easier. These are the unseen battles you've been winning. When you can recognize that you've become more resilient, that you're no longer broken by the same struggles that used to defeat you, it's undeniable proof that you're growing. Resilience is a hidden strength, and it shows that no matter what comes your way, you've built the kind of toughness that will carry you forward. That alone means you're doing far better than you think. There comes a point in life when you realize that peace is far more valuable than drama. In the past, you might have found yourself caught up in arguments, gossip, or situations that fueled negativity. Maybe you even thrived on the chaos for a while because it made life feel exciting, or because you didn't yet understand how much it drained you. But when you begin to choose peace over drama, it's a clear sign that you're leveling up in ways you may not give yourself credit for. Think about how you respond now compared to before. Someone insults you, and instead of snapping back, you walk away. A friend stirs up gossip, and you quietly remove yourself instead of adding fuel. You used to be reactive, but now you pause, breathe, and choose the calmer road. That shift is not weakness, it's wisdom. It shows that you value your energy, your mental health, and your inner stability more than winning an argument or proving a point. Choosing peace doesn't mean you're passive or indifferent. It means you've recognized that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every voice deserves your attention. It's the ability to let go of small annoyances instead of letting them ruin your day. It's the maturity of knowing that inner calm is more rewarding than temporary satisfaction from drama. This kind of growth is easy to overlook because peace is quiet. It doesn't get applause or recognition the way bold actions do. But in reality, choosing peace is one of the most powerful signs of progress. It means you're no longer letting outside chaos control your life. You've learned that your well-being is worth protecting, and that's a strength that sets you apart. If you're seeking peace more often than you're seeking drama, you're already doing better than you realize. Another powerful sign that you're further along than you think is that you've stopped needing constant external validation. At some point in the past, you might have lived for approval, waiting for likes on social media, hoping for praise from your boss, or bending yourself to fit into other people's expectations. It's easy to confuse validation with self-worth, and for a long time, many of us chase that external approval because it feels like proof that we matter. But over time, you've probably noticed a shift. You no longer crave that same recognition. You've begun to trust your own judgment, value your own choices, and find satisfaction in your own progress, even if no one else sees it. This change is subtle, and you may not even realize it's happening until you look back. Maybe you post less online because you don't need attention to feel good about yourself anymore. Maybe you're pursuing goals quietly, without broadcasting every step, because you're focused on the journey rather than applause. Or maybe you've started to wear what you like, say what you mean, and live in a way that feels authentic, regardless of whether anyone else approves. When you stop needing validation, it doesn't mean you no longer appreciate encouragement or compliments. It just means you're no longer dependent on them. You've built a core of self-confidence that isn't shaken by whether people notice you, agree with you, or admire you. That's strength. That's maturity. And it's one of the clearest indicators that you're doing better than you give yourself credit for. Because here's the truth. People who live for validation are often trapped, always chasing the next nod of approval. But when you can find validation from within, when you can tell yourself, this is enough, I am enough, you've freed yourself. That freedom is progress, and it shows that you're walking a path of self-assurance that many never find. If you no longer rely on the outside world to define your worth, you're already much further than you think. Struggle is often mistaken for failure, but in reality, it's one of the clearest signs of progress. If you're still fighting, still pushing, still showing up even when life feels heavy, it means you haven't given up on yourself. That persistence is proof that you're stronger than you realize. Think about it. Anyone can keep going when everything is easy, but it takes real character to keep moving forward when things are hard. You might look at your struggles and think they're evidence that you're not succeeding, but the truth is the opposite. Struggle means you're growing, because growth is never comfortable. Maybe you're struggling to stay disciplined at the gym, but you're still going back. Maybe you're struggling in your career, but you keep applying, learning, and showing up for opportunities. Maybe you're struggling in relationships, but you're not closing yourself off. You're still willing to love, to trust, to heal. Every effort you make, even if it feels messy, is evidence of resilience. What you may not notice is how many times you've already refused to quit. The days you got out of bed when it felt impossible. The moments you tried again after being rejected. The decisions to keep moving forward, despite fear or exhaustion. Each of those choices is a victory, even if you don't label it as one. The reality is, the people who seem the strongest aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who struggle, but never surrender. And if that describes you, then you're doing far better than you think. Your willingness to continue in the face of difficulty is proof that you're building endurance, grit, and determination. Those qualities will carry you further than perfection ever could. Struggling doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in the middle of becoming stronger. Another sign that you're ahead of where you think you are is the way you've started to think long-term. There was a time when your decisions might have been all about instant gratification, choosing what feels good in the moment, even if it costs you later. But little by little, you've shifted. You've started to see the bigger picture, to recognize that what you do today shapes your tomorrow. That shift in perspective is a major step forward, even if you don't fully realize it. Maybe it shows up in your finances. You've begun saving instead of spending everything the moment you get it. Maybe it shows up in your health. You're making small choices each day, like drinking water, getting sleep, or exercising, because you know your body will thank you years from now. Maybe it shows up in your relationships. You're not chasing temporary attention anymore. You're seeking depth, trust, and something that lasts. These changes may not be dramatic, but they reveal a new level of wisdom and maturity. Thinking long-term also means you've learned patience. You understand that not everything happens overnight, and you're willing to invest time, energy, and consistency even when the rewards are delayed. That kind of patience is rare in a world obsessed with speed, It takes strength to keep working on a goal when the payoff isn't immediate. This doesn't mean you've got everything figured out or that you never slip into short-term thinking. It simply means that your mindset has shifted. You've started asking, how will this choice affect me later? That question alone sets you apart. It proves that you care about the future version of yourself, and you're willing to make sacrifices today for a better tomorrow. If you're starting to live with a long-term perspective, that's one of the strongest signs you're doing better than you think. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful forms of progress. And if you've started noticing your own patterns, habits, and triggers, you're already ahead of the game. Most people go through life reacting without ever pausing to understand why they do what they do. But when you begin to ask yourself questions, why did I react that way? Why do I keep repeating this habit? What's really driving my choices? You're stepping into a level of growth that many never reach. Think about it. Maybe you've realized that certain environments drain your energy, so you avoid them. Maybe you've recognized that stress pushes you toward unhealthy coping mechanisms, and now you're learning to handle it differently. Maybe you've caught yourself in negative self-talk and chosen to reframe it instead of letting it spiral. These little moments of awareness may not seem like much, but they're signs of real transformation. Self-awareness is the foundation of change because you can't improve what you don't notice. Once you see yourself clearly, you can begin to take control. You can break patterns, heal wounds, and build new habits intentionally. Without awareness, people stay stuck, repeating the same cycles and wondering why nothing changes. But you've already broken out of that fog by seeing yourself honestly. It takes courage to be self-aware, because it often means confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. It's easier to point fingers outward than to look inward. But the fact that you're willing to face those truths, to admit when you're wrong, and to acknowledge where you need to grow, that shows strength. It shows maturity, and it shows you're far further along than you may give yourself credit for. If you're becoming more self-aware, it means you're no longer living on autopilot. You're living with intention, and that alone is proof that you're doing better than you think. Another clear sign that you're doing better than you think is when you find yourself comparing less to others. Comparison is one of the biggest traps we fall into, especially in the age of social media. Everywhere you look, it seems like someone is achieving more, traveling more, earning more, or living a happier life. And when you measure yourself against that endless stream, you always end up feeling behind. But something shifts when you begin to focus less on what others are doing and more on your own progress. That shift is quiet, but it's powerful. Think about the times you used to feel crushed when you saw someone post about a promotion or a new relationship. Maybe you felt like you weren't enough, like you'd never catch up. Now, you might still notice those things, but instead of jealousy, you feel inspired, or you simply stay focused on your own lane. That's growth. It shows you've started to trust your own journey instead of letting someone else's timeline dictate how you feel. The truth is, comparison steals joy because it blinds you to how far you've come. When you stop comparing, you start noticing your own wins. You realize that just because someone else is succeeding doesn't mean you're failing. Their story is theirs, and yours is unfolding at its own pace. That understanding is a level of maturity that many never reach, because it requires self-confidence and patience. When you free yourself from the trap of comparison, you reclaim your peace. You stop chasing someone else's life and start appreciating your own. And that's one of the strongest indicators that you're further along than you give yourself credit for. If you've noticed that the grip of comparison is loosening in your life, then you're not falling behind. You're finally moving forward on your own terms. Gratitude is one of the most underrated signs that you're growing. And if you've found yourself appreciating the small things more often, it's proof that you're doing better than you think. In the past, you might have overlooked the everyday moments: your morning coffee, a safe place to sleep, a conversation with someone you care about. Maybe you were so focused on what you lacked that you barely noticed what you already had. But now, you pause, even briefly, to acknowledge those simple blessings. That shift in perspective is not small. It's a reflection of maturity, and it changes everything. Gratitude transforms the way you see your life. It doesn't erase challenges, but it balances them with reminders of what's still good. When you wake up and feel thankful just to see another day, that's a powerful mindset. When you can sit in silence and feel grateful for the roof over your head, the food on your table, or the people who support you, you're already richer than you realize. A gratitude trains your mind to look for abundance rather than lack, and that mindset attracts more growth, more opportunities, and more peace. Think about how different your days feel when you focus on gratitude. Instead of constantly striving and stressing about what you don't have, you start to notice how much you've already gained. That doesn't mean you stop chasing goals or wanting more. It just means you no longer believe happiness is somewhere out there in the future. You've realized it's already here, in the little things you used to overlook. If you've developed the habit of gratitude, even in difficult times, you're ahead of where you think you are. Because gratitude is not only a sign of progress, it's also fuel for resilience, joy, and deeper contentment. And if you're living with more gratitude today than you did yesterday, it's undeniable evidence that you're doing far better than you give yourself credit for. Pain has a way of shaping us in ways that comfort never could. If you've faced heartbreak, loss, failure, or disappointment and somehow found a way to turn that pain into growth, you're already doing better than you think. Most people run from pain, bury it, or let it define them. But when you choose to face it and use it as fuel for transformation, you unlock a strength that can't be taught. It can only be earned through experience. Think about a difficult season in your life, one where you felt broken or defeated. At the time, it may have seemed like nothing good could come from it. But look at you now. You've taken lessons from that experience, and you're applying them. Maybe you became more empathetic because you know what suffering feels like. Maybe you became wiser in relationships because you learned who truly deserves your trust. Maybe you became stronger in your career because you understood how to handle rejection without letting it stop you. Pain forced you to grow roots you didn't know you had. What's incredible is that pain often leaves behind gifts that you only recognize later. The heartbreak that taught you self-worth, the failure that taught you resilience, the loss that taught you how to cherish life. Each wound has shaped you into someone more grounded, more compassionate, and more capable than before. Turning pain into growth doesn't mean you don't still carry scars. It means you've chosen not to let those scars define you. You've allowed them to remind you of what you overcame and how far you've come. If you've taken something hard and turned it into wisdom, strength, or determination, then you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And that's a powerful sign that you're further along than you realize. One of the most surprising signs that you're doing better than you think is the fact that you're inspiring others without even realizing it. Most of the time, you don't see the impact you have on the people around you because they don't always tell you. But quietly, in the background, your actions, your choices, and even your resilience are influencing others more than you know. Think about the times you've shared a struggle and kept going anyway. To you, it might feel like just another tough day, but someone watching you saw courage, Or the times you chose kindness when you could have chosen bitterness. Someone else noticed, and it gave them hope. Even the small, everyday things like showing up consistently, working on yourself, or speaking honestly can become examples that others look up to. You might not feel like a role model, but someone younger than you, a friend, a co-worker, or even a family member may already see you that way. They're paying attention, even if they never say a word. Sometimes it's not the loud, dramatic achievements that inspire people. It's the quiet persistence, the way you keep moving forward despite challenges, or the way you carry yourself with integrity. If others are drawing strength from your journey, it means your life is having an impact that's bigger than you realize. You may not see yourself as inspiring, but the truth is, inspiration often happens in the shadows, unnoticed by the one giving it. If you've ever had someone say, "Because of you, I didn't give up," or even hinted that your example encouraged them, then you've already made a difference. And that is a powerful reminder that you're doing far better than you think. When you take a step back and connect all of these signs, a bigger picture begins to emerge. Each one on its own might feel small, choosing peace, setting boundaries, bouncing back from struggles. But together, they tell a powerful story about your growth. The climax of this journey is realizing that you are not the same person you once were, and that the progress you've made is far greater than the doubt you often feel. This is the moment where everything clicks. You realize that outgrowing old versions of yourself, saying no with confidence, handling setbacks with resilience, and valuing peace are not just random improvements. They're evidence of transformation. You've built strength through your struggles. You've chosen self-respect over validation. You've learned patience through long-term thinking, awareness through self-reflection, and joy through gratitude. These are not surface-level changes. They're the kind of shifts that shape who you are at the core. The key moment comes when you recognize that progress doesn't always look dramatic. It's often quiet. It's often hidden in the way you carry yourself, the choices you make, and the battles you've already won in silence. The fact that you're even here, reflecting, learning, and wanting to grow, is proof that you're further along than you think. So instead of asking yourself, "Why am I not there yet?" start asking, "How far have I already come?" Because the truth is, you are already living signs of growth every day. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are evolving, becoming and shaping yourself into someone stronger than you've ever been. And once you truly see that, you'll understand that you've been doing better all along. As we bring everything together, let's take a moment to summarize the journey. You've seen how outgrowing old versions of yourself is proof that you're not standing still. You've learned that saying no shows strength and self-respect. You've realized that resilience shines every time you bounce back from setbacks. You've discovered the quiet power of choosing peace over drama. You've embraced the ability to be alone and to find comfort in your own company. You've stopped relying on external validation and started trusting yourself. You've kept going, even when you were struggling, which is the clearest proof of inner strength. You've also begun thinking long-term, investing in choices today that build a better tomorrow. You've grown in self-awareness, which allows you to break old cycles and live with intention. You've released yourself from the trap of constant comparison, and in doing so, you've reclaimed peace of mind. You've practiced gratitude, which shifts your focus from what's missing to what's abundant. You've taken pain and transformed it into wisdom and growth. And without even realizing it, you've inspired others simply by the way you live and keep moving forward. When all of these signs come together, they form undeniable evidence You are not failing, and you are not behind. You are on your way, steadily building a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of yourself. You may not notice your progress day to day, but the truth is that you've been walking forward all along. And the fact that you're even reflecting on these signs now is proof that you care about your growth, which means you're already doing better than you think.